Okay, we'll start. Tanya, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Where are you from?
Maryland. Baltimore,
Maryland. I thought maybe.
Yes.
Okay. So, the thought for today is there anyone time and practice equal achievement. That's the thought for the day. If there's anybody here that wants to do a deal together, get with me, get with each other after the meeting. This is where the magic happens. So,
Okay.
the book for this month is Deep Work by Cal Newport. I read it 4 or 5 years ago, and it's a really, really good book.
Repeat again, what was it?
Deep Work by Cal Newport. I get distracted very easily, and in reading that book and trying to put into what it said in the book, it's helped me be able to stay concentrated when I'm at the desk. And then if I guess both y'all signed in, yeah. Just remember that. Raymond's going to give us the market report.
All right. Right. Well, I'll do my hands on this. Well, I've got the numbers for Midland. So we've got 415 active listings, and this is only residential. And then we've got 279 that are actually under contract currently. 219 houses that sold last month. So we've got currently about 2 months of active inventory. Which, I mean, we're leaning more towards the seller side. We've got an average list price of 426,000 and an average sale price of 417,000. So we're about 98% list to sell. And then we're seeing about an average price of $178 a square foot here in Midland. And in Odessa, we've got 405 active listings, 215 that are under contract, and then 183 that sold last month. So we're same thing. We've got about two months of inventory in Odessa, and they've got an average price of 288,000. The average list price and average sale price of 277,000. So same thing, 98%. I mean, that was getting full ask for most of these houses. And over there, we're seeing about $141 per square foot in average sale price. Yeah, if you have any questions about it, just hold it.
So just remember tonight, none of the stuff you hear is legal or accounting or professional information. It's just here for your enjoyment. And if you need to get in touch with her, get in touch with me. I can give you her phone number. She actually does teach courses on notes, and she'll let you know about that. She started investing in real estate 12 years ago, and she's managing rentals, doing a couple of flips, and trying to wholesale. And it wasn't until she came across note investments that she finally found the niche that she wanted to go into. And so I always tell people, try to find, like I do mobile homes, and that's a niche that I like because not very many people are in them. And so find the area that you like to do, and then just delve into it and really study that area. And it'll make you a lot more money because you'll weed out competition. It's not very many people are willing to put work in to educate themselves. Okay, Tanya, take it away.
Could I get permissions to share screen?
Oh, yes. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, I should have done that before. I'll make you let's see, co-host. Where is it? Oh, maybe it's over on your thing. Co-host. There you go. See if it works now.
Got it. Yep, I'm good.
Okay. We still see you, so we don't see the.
Okay. Well, first I wanted to say hello. Good evening to everybody. Hey, I love that. So I'm Tonya Brown. I will give a little bit of spiel about myself. I am in Maryland. I live right outside of the Baltimore area. And as Lee said, I have been investing in notes. Actually, I've been investing in notes for almost 5 years and in real estate for 12 years. So I'll go into all of that, but I just want to say thank you for the invitation. I greatly appreciate it. And I've been looking forward to it all month. So thank you so much. and I will just jump right into this presentation.
You have a beautiful necklace.
Oh, thank you. Let me share screen. Okay, I always have to share screen one, and then I have to, from the beginning.
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay. Mm, Yep, screen one. Okay, and let me bring my other screen up. Alrighty, so just a little bit about me. My background is in journalism and communications. I worked for the federal government for several years, and I was doing media relations, spokesperson for the USDA, secretary, etc. And then I got into real estate investing about 12 years ago. I kind of fell into it simply because my family had owned a couple of properties. They kind of passed on to me. But anyway, I did the whole landlording thing, and I did it with family in it. So you know how that turned out. It wasn't pretty. And then I tried to do a couple of flips, and I like flips, but I prefer funding flips as opposed to, doing the actual work. I like going in and saying, oh, this looks pretty. And I've tried wholesaling. Wholesaling is a lot of work. And then I was looking into, like Lee was saying, finding my niche. What was it? And I went to look up tax liens, and I discovered notes. And I was like, wait a minute, I can sit on my couch and collect people's mortgages. This is just crazy. So I kind of delved into it and looked into more and more, and I took some training, and I just kind of fell in love with this niche of real estate. And what I like about it is that it's never boring, and it's always something new. And the reason is because there are people behind these notes. And with people, you can have anything. They have challenges, they have life happen to them. Sometimes they're just trifling. Either way, it's always something exciting and something new to do and to learn. So I started the Pier Harbor Group. We purchase distressed assets. I do also do some performing assets, not just all non-performing, but we purchase from banks, hedge funds, we do brokers, we have investors. Anybody who has a note, we will buy it from them within reason. We also provide training on how to invest in notes. And just a little bit more about me. I'm a gardener. I have a little backyard garden. I keep bees. I enjoy cycling, more so spinning. I'm not so much of an outdoor cycler. Enjoy traveling, spending time with some of my family, and volunteering. So that's just me. So just a disclaimer, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a financial advisor or a lawyer. There is risk in note investing. You have to have a team in place, your lawyer, your accountant, your servicer, your mentor, and make sure that you do a thorough due diligence, and always, always, always learn before you buy. So jumping right into the basics of note investing, what is a note? It's literally just a promissory note. That's it. It's a promise to pay. So we have car notes. If you don't pay for your car when you buy a new car in cash, you usually finance it. You finance it, with that comes a promissory note. And it states that you're going to pay a certain amount at a certain rate, a certain amount of time, and this is your payment amount. Nowadays we have cell phone notes, or it could just be a private loan. So it doesn't matter if it's from a bank or a private lender, it all has the same information, right? The amount of the loan, that's how much you're buying it for. The rate, that's the interest rate. The term, how long are you going to pay it? And the monthly payment amount. That's all a note is. So a mortgage versus a note, the mortgage, as you all know, is the instrument that ties that promissory note to the property. So if you sat down when you purchased a house and you sat down at the title company and you had that 2-inch thick pile of paper that you had to sign, 3 documents were a part of that. It was the promissory note, it was the mortgage, and it was the deed. And the mortgage is what ties that deed to that promissory note. And that you actually go home with that deed. But ultimately, people say, I pay my mortgage. You're not really paying your mortgage. You're paying the note that is tied to that. So that's what the mortgage versus the note.
For a second.
Sure, go
That's
ahead.
The deed of trust state. So when she said mortgage, just think deed of trust.
Oh, sorry, you're a deed of trust. Sorry.
That's fine. I just wanted to clarify that for them. So.
Right. Yeah, but we're deed of trust also.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yes. So what is mortgage note investing? It's buying the note and mortgage, which is the paper and the remaining debt associated with that note that's secured by the property listed on that mortgage. So you are actually buying paper. You're not buying the asset, and you're investing in debt. So ultimately, you are becoming the bank. The payments go to you. You can foreclose. You can do loan modifications. You can pretty much do anything you want to do within reason. So I was on what do you call it? A forum. And this guy, he was so upset that he had this note and his borrower was paying it off. And he was just paying it off earlier than he expected. And he asked, well, can I impose an early payoff penalty? Well, no, sir, you can't. Unless that was written into the contract, you cannot impose, just throw an early penalty payment on there. And then he said, okay, well, then can I tell the borrower I just won't accept his early payoff? Like, no, you can't do that. You can't just say I won't accept your payment when the man is trying to pay. So there are things you can do, but you're still responsible for being a responsible lender and being a responsible bank. So note investing, again, you're purchasing the promissory note in the paper and a whole lot of other paper along with it, but it is not the actual asset. You generally purchase it at a discount of the unpaid balance. So the unpaid balance is the remaining balance on the actual loan. It's not the market value. It has nothing to do with that. It's always at the unpaid principal balance. So by purchasing those notes, you become the bank, you start receiving the monthly payments, or you can go in, you have the right to foreclose if the borrower does not pay. So what are the benefits of investing, note investing? One, it is passive income if you get a performing note. It is not passive income if you get a non-performing note. If it's performing, then you're just taking it over and you're collecting the monthly cash flow. You have a great borrower. It's not much to do. There is no landlording. So as with any other mortgage or deed of trust, you take over the property. So you have the actual property. You can't, if your house needs a new roof, you're not calling Wells Fargo saying, I need a new roof, come fix it. There's no landlording. So there's no tenants, termites, and toilets, right? There's no contractors to manage. You get some very strong returns, which I will show you in a few. You get consistent cash flow, and you become the loss payee on the insurance policy. And that's like with anything else. If you're flipping a house or you have property that the borrower stopped insuring, you have to get that forced place insurance. For this was a property that I purchased as part of a tape of 12 different notes. And once we got the 12 notes, we sold off about 10 of them. It was a brokering. We brokered off about 10 of them. And we kept this one. We kept two, but this was one of them. This was in Richmond, Virginia. And in Richmond, Virginia, this one sat across from a cemetery. And it was a quad. And so we bought it for $10,000 because it was cheap. They were really trying to get rid of that tape. And it was like 40 cents on the dollar that we bought the entire tape. The total was about $120,000 that we came up with to buy the whole tape. But this particular asset was only $10,000. I put insurance on it for $15,000 just to cover our investment because I knew we had to go in, we had to pay the lawyer, and that was going to cost around $5,000. So I just insured it for $15,000. And this happened last year. Around June of last year, I get a call from the code enforcement, and they said, hey, somebody burned down your house. And we were like, okay. He said, just get the rubble out the middle of the street because over here, there's a street. He said, put a fence around it. We were like, okay, fine. He said some kids were playing around and they said that they saw some kids running away and it caught on fire. I was like, okay, that's fine. So I went to the insurance company and I said, hey, our place burned down. Of course, they paid us out the $15,000. Then we had to put out a couple thousand more. I said, let's just list this as is. So we listed it with the pictures looking like this on MLS. And somebody purchased it for $60,000. And I actually have a blog on my website of how we sold ashes for $60,000. Now, granted, we had done the people a favor because it was already, torn down. They just had to carry this stuff around. But that's the benefit of note investing because you're not buying at market rates. You're not buying at, 70 or 75 cents on the times ARV times 0.7 minus rehab costs, and you're doing all of those things. It's just really a discount of the unpaid balance. So in some cases, we're actually selling to wholesalers and everybody else because we're getting them at such discounted prices. So what note investing is not? It is not a hard asset. You're not buying the property. I had one guy who took my course. He was getting into his first note, and every time we take it, part of the due diligence, we have people go by if it's not in the state that we're in, and they take pictures. And he had somebody go take pictures. And he was like, oh my gosh, there's a crack in the foundation. We have to send somebody out there to go look at it. I was like, dude, that's called trespassing. You cannot go into someone else's property. Bank of America is not coming to your property saying, hey, we took pictures, we saw a foundation problem, we need to get somebody in there to fix it. No, you can't do that. Again, you have to think like the bank. Now, can you get the asset back? Yes. If you're foreclosing, it's possible that you get the property back. It then becomes REO. But either way, you're not buying the actual property when you first start out. You're buying the paper. It is not a method to kick people out and obtain a house. I've heard people say that too many times. They're like, oh, the market's so hard. I can't get a house. I can't get anything to flip. I can't. And they're like, I want to try notes. I'm like, dude, no. Because anytime you get into notes, you don't know what's going to happen. Even if you buy a non-performing note, you have no idea what's going to happen. You don't know if the people are all of a sudden going to reperform. You don't know if they're going to say, hey, I'm going to claim bankruptcy, and then you're in it for another year. You have no idea. So the goal is not to go in and kick people out and say, hey, I got your loan, get out because I love your house. Again, you're under a contract, that promissory note, that mortgage, that deed. It's not get rich quick because, as you all know, you build wealth. And it is not risk-free. If you do not pull title, if you don't do proper due diligence, if you don't handle all of what you're supposed to handle in order to make sure that you are getting a good asset, then of course you can lose money. Any questions? Cool. So the types of real estate notes. You have mortgage, contract for deed, and a lease options. These are all different types. So you can get the mortgage. A mortgage will generally be something that is more secure. It's more secure because of the underwriting. So you usually go to a bank or a credit union. They usually require you to put 20% down. They also require you to have maybe a 700 credit score. That has a more tight or stringent underwriting requirement. Your contract for deeds or your land contracts, those are generally for people who may not have that 20% down. They may not have a credit score of 700, but yet they have income. And I've done several contract for deeds when I'm originating notes because they don't necessarily qualify for the mortgage. And the contract for deed is kind of like a layaway system, right? You follow the contract, which is the promissory note. There's a promissory note in each of the contract for deeds. And you follow that as soon as you make all of your payments based on that term, based on that rate. Once you finish and you've satisfied that contract, then you get the deed. Therefore, it's contract for deed. And the lease option, people do sell lease options, which is a rent to own. So it's a master lease with an option to actually purchase the house. So it's usually maybe 5 to 7 years. They can make payments. They can make payments on time, and then at the end of that 5 to 7 years, or within that 5 to 7 years, they may choose to actually purchase the property. And then those monthly credits that were coming from the monthly rental payments are paying down that mortgage so that they pay a little bit less. But it's an easy way for people who have bad credit, who may just need help to get into a property. It's a good way to help them and teach them about home ownership also, because in my lease options, I make sure that people are actually taking care of the property. You're not calling me to take care of the property if the toilet breaks down or something happens. If you want to eventually own this home, this is what you have to do. So those 3 types of paper are available for sale. So lien position, everybody's heard of first position, second position. There's actually a third, fourth position. Performing versus non-performing notes. What does it all mean? First and second is just simply the lien position. It means that the lender has the first rights. It's generally a higher entry fee because normally that's your main mortgage, right? So if you're new and you're buying a new home, it's your first home, you go to Wells Fargo and you say, Wells Fargo, I want a loan. Wells Fargo is in first position for your home. Then 10 years later, you decide you want to upgrade something or you want to invest in a note, and you take out a home equity line of credit or a home equity loan. That becomes, and you take it out from Bank of America. Bank of America is now in the second position. So there are people who just focus in the second position. There are people who just focus in first. I focus in first because I like to be in control. And plus, I really haven't learned the second position. I keep saying that I'm going to find a mentor to teach me the second position because there's so many different nuances, but I haven't because I'm stuck in the first position. Then performing versus non-performing. A performing note, the borrower is paying. A non-performing note, the borrower is not paying. And I put that 80 cents to par in there because generally for a performing note, you can buy it at a discount of anywhere from 80% to par, par being the face value of the note. So 80 cents on the dollar to the actual face value of that note. For non-performing notes, you can pay anywhere from 50 to 65, sometimes a little bit higher, just depending on how, if the numbers work for you. But you can usually buy it for 50 cents to 65 cents on the dollar. Any questions there?
I do.
Yes,
Non-performing note. If that means they've stopped paying their mortgage, or am I?
yes.
Is that basically all that meant, right? Or have stopped?
Say that one more time. I'm having a
On the
difficult time.
non-performing,
Mhm,
it means the person who owned that mortgage, they just stopped paying
correct.
at that point, and you're gonna go in there and take that mortgage over?
Yes. So I'm going in there trying to, and I don't necessarily take it over. I go in there, one, and try and get it to reperform. So that's my first goal. I want it to reperform. So I go in there and see what's the problem. Did you, fall off a roof and break your back and you're the sole breadwinner? And then, 6 months later, when you recovered, you felt like you were just so underwater, you couldn't catch up. Then I can go in and say, okay, well, let's work with you. But if you're just stop paying and you just you didn't feel like it, or you vacated the property or what have you, then I go in and actually have to foreclose. And I look at the situation too. I mean, the banks usually say 30, 60, 90 days. After 90 days, we start heading into foreclosure. If I'm looking at 6 months to a year and you haven't paid your mortgage and we're going in, we'll find out what the problem is. More than likely, I will have to go through the foreclosure process.
Thank you.
So what can you do with notes? You can create notes. So if, for example, if you have a rental property that's paid off and you have a renter that's been renting from you for the past 5 years, you're tired of being the landlord and you say, hey, renter, do you want to buy this house? You can then turn back a note and carry back the note. So instead of you getting rental payments, you'll start getting mortgage payments. You can wholesale. Generally, you can wholesale a tape of notes or 5 or 6. You don't get a whole lot of income from like wholesaling a property, but you could get like $2,000 to $3,000 off of each note. You can use it as collateral, go to the bank, or hypothecation. You can sell all or part of it, what we call a partial. So for example, if I have a note that has 100 payments left on it, I could sell you 50 of those payments. And then after you receive those 50 payments, the remaining 50 payments will come back to me. You can always foreclose. And of course, you could just sit and enjoy the cash flow as it comes in. So this was my first note. I call it truly passive because I bought it, I think in 2019. It was my first note, and I bought it, as you see, for $9,345. It was actually 75 cents on the dollar, and it was performing. And it was in Cleveland, Ohio. I said I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money because I don't know if this note thing really worked. So I said $10,000, I'm okay. It's not my life savings. The unpaid balance, which was the remaining balance on the loan, was $12,460, and the monthly payment was $207. So total payments I would receive is $17,586 with a return of my principal at 4.4 years. The as-is value, meaning if I should happen to have to foreclose and I didn't want to go in and do anything, I didn't want to change the carpets, I didn't want to put paint on the walls, how much would it sell for? And the realtor told me it would go for about $35,000. If I were to go in and renovate it, she said it could probably go for about $80,000. So my projected profit was $4,051, and it's actually still going. This is projected because it just pays month after month. I don't have any issues with it. They're good borrowers with an almost 30% return on investment. So the benefits of performing notes is, yes, they provide immediate cash flow. As soon as you take over that note, you start receiving the payments. It's easy to determine your return on investment. I have a budget sheet that I use, and I can show it to you all. If you all want it, I can send it to you. But it easily determines your return on investment and your exit strategies. Your expenses are lower because all you're really paying is your servicer. And I'll discuss what a servicer is and does. The challenges of performing notes is that they can become non-performing. Again, you're dealing with people. Anything can happen. Grandma could be housing the entire family, her children and her grandchildren, and then grandma passes away. She was paying fine, doing great, no issues. Grandma passes away, and now everybody thinks they can live in the house for free. You might have to go in and it's now become non-performing. You need to know what to do in that case. So you could have the death of a borrower, the illness or injury of a borrower, or the borrower just becomes trifling. I mean, whatever happens, sometimes it could be a divorce and nobody wants to pay anything and they just spite the other and then go separate ways. Who knows? But you just need to know that performing notes can go non-performing and you may have to go in and foreclose. I've actually seen some of these on the market. People have bought performing notes thinking that they were just going to sit and let it cash flow and they kick their heels up and say, yeah, I own a note. And then a year later, I'm looking at it and it's a non-performing note. And I'm like, what happened? They just bought it because you could see the transactions. I'm like, they just bought it a year ago. And I was like, oh, I see. Looking at the pay history, it was performing. Now it's non-performing. They didn't know how to handle it or what to do with it. So just know what to do when you get those because they can become non-performing. So what's the benefit of buying a non-performing note? Why would you want to buy somebody's problem? The challenges are that there is no immediate cash flow at all. And in fact, you're spending money at this point. You can only estimate your return on investment, and that's just based off of your due diligence. Again, I still run all of those through a budget sheet, but you're just estimating because you don't know which way this is going to go. You have immediate expenses. Immediately, you have to put insurance on that property. You may have to pay the back taxes. You may have to pay the water. In Maryland, water actually stays with the property. It doesn't go with the borrower. So if your property is delinquent in the water, you have to pay the back taxes and you have to pay the water bill because the water bill could actually send it to tax sale. You have to pay the lawyers, boots on the ground. You may have to clean stuff out. Your servicer, and your servicer will start charging you more money because it's non-performing versus a performing note. And then you might have to pay your realtor. And then, of course, you may have to go through the process of foreclosure, which in and of itself is not horrible. It's really just a game of patience, but I don't always want to go through foreclosure. In fact, I never want to go through foreclosure. I want to keep people in their house so I don't have to go through that process. But if you have to go through it, then it's just part of it. And the benefit of non-performing notes is that, one, they can reperform. You can help people stay in their homes and you get very strong returns. So this is one that I did in Bastrop, Louisiana. I had no idea what Bastrop, Louisiana was, but I said, I'm going to buy this note. And the reason I bought this note is because you receive something called, during your due diligence period, after your offer is accepted, you receive the collateral file. And you have an opportunity to read the collateral file. The collateral file is a stack of papers in a folder that is the lifeline of a note. And it's from the time the note was born until it reaches your hand. It tells you everything that has happened. And part of that is that you have notes from your servicer. And I'm going to get into what your servicer is and what they do. But every time the borrower calls that servicer, they write down everything. And in this case, I read those notes. It was like 300 pages of notes. And all the borrower kept saying is, I want to keep my house. I want to keep my house. I want to keep my house. And I said, he wants to keep his house. I said, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to help him keep his house. So I bought it for, I bought it for $14,807. The unpaid balance was $19,934 and the monthly payment was only $336. But the borrower owed $6,500 just to catch up to this unpaid principal balance. This was all late fees and interest and past payments that he did not pay. So he had that just to catch up. So I was almost like, okay, well, I'm really at $26,000. So I'm okay with that. That's why I bought it at, I think it was like 70 cents on the dollar. So he gave me the runaround. At first I went in and I said, hey, let's get it reperforming. How can we help you? And he had COVID and he had his job and then he hurt his back and then he hurt his leg and then his wife got sick and it was a whole lot of stuff going on with him. And I said, okay, well, how can we help? And he was like, I'm going to start paying. I was like, okay, that's great. So then he says, he calls because he communicates. I like when a borrower communicates, because if you're communicating with me, I'm good. But once you stop communicating, I'm like, okay, that you just have no recourse. You're not going to pay. But he was communicating. He was communicating, but he wasn't taking action. So he's at the bank and he's calling and he's saying, hey, how much do I owe again? I'm at the bank and I'm about to start paying. And everything, the phone's breaking up. So I was like, okay, now you're playing games. So went to a deed in lieu. I said, I'll just offer a deed in lieu of me foreclosing on you. So you just hand over the deed and leave it, and I will not foreclose. A deed in lieu. I said, would you accept the deed in lieu? He calls up and he says, I received the documents. He said, no, I'm not going to give you a deed in lieu. No. He said, I'm putting this on the market. It's going to be on the market soon, and we're going to sell it, and we're going to give you your money. I was like, okay. Obviously, he thinks that the only MLS is in Bastrop, Louisiana. So I went online to see if it was on the market. It wasn't on the market. It wasn't on the market. And 2 weeks later, it still wasn't on the market. I said, now he's still playing games and he hasn't paid a dime. So I said, I'm going into foreclosure. Started the foreclosure process. Didn't hear from him through the entire process. And that's what a lot of note investing is. It's a lot of just waiting. It's a lot of patience and waiting on the courts, waiting on the lawyers, waiting on everybody. But you have to trust the process. So about 2 weeks before this was going to go to auction, the lawyer calls me and he says, hey, the guy called and he said he wants to work things out with you. Are you willing to work with him? And I said, absolutely not. The workout time is over. I spent about 8 months trying to work this out with him. And he gave me the runaround. I am not going to stop the foreclosure. And that's the whole reason. It's not because I was trying to be hardcore and be mean and be the mean little lender. It was because if I stop the foreclosure, he starts acting up again, then I have to start that foreclosure all over again. I've already paid this lawyer $1,000 to start it. I'm not going to stop it and then turn around, he acts up, and I have to pay the lawyer again to start it up again. I'm not doing that. So I said, the only thing I will accept is a full payoff, plus he has to pay the lawyer fees. She said, okay. 1 week later, the lawyer calls me up and says, he's coming here with a check. I was like, no, he's not. He's a liar. He's not coming there with a check. And she's like, he said he's coming. I say, well, all right, well, call me. 30 minutes later, they call me and say, he dropped off the check. I was like, are you sure that's a real check? Is it a cashier's check? And they were like, yes, it's a cashier's check. And I wanted to say, was it in crayon? Are you sure it's not a real, and it was the real thing. They said, it's the real deal. I said, okay. So he paid it off $30,800. And that was an ROI of 65%. So we didn't have to go through the foreclosure process. So what is a servicer? I've been talking about this servicer. Servicers are companies that are responsible for managing your loans. They collect the payments for you. They send the payments to you. They collect it and they usually send them directly to you. Some of them still send checks. Some of them do direct deposits. They handle your escrow accounts. They pay the taxes. They pay the insurance. They make sure that the insurance, if it's not through escrow, that the insurance is up to date, and they'll ask for a copy of the form. What do you call it? The form, and send it to you. They'll call and send late payment notices. They'll make sure that they call and say, hey, it's late. And they communicate with the borrower. So you still have to service your servicer. I always call servicers, they're like the property managers of your rental properties, right? So they're the property managers of your loan, but you still have to service them, just like you manage your property managers. You have to make sure that the taxes are paid, because they are to pay the taxes, but you just follow up and look online and see, make sure they paid them. Check that the insurance has been renewed. Check that payments are accurate. I had one servicer who there were late fees, and I didn't notice it for a long time. It was actually like 6 months. I didn't notice that the borrower had consistent late fees, but they were not dropping the late fee down into that total column, and therefore I wasn't getting paid the late fees. So then they ended up sending me a check for about $300 just in late fees. So you just have to watch things like that. And certain servicers, reps, I use Real Estate Property Service. I use I don't use FCI, but I've heard a lot of people who use FCI, they like them. I do use SNSC and I use Allied, and all of those are pretty good. So where do you buy notes? This is what I usually get. I say, they want to know, where can I buy notes? Just to start off and look, the MLS of note investing, you can go to PaperStack, you can go to watermark.com and Notes Direct and REO Pro. These will give you just an idea of what's out there and what people are trying to sell. It's kind of even formatted like the MLS, and they give you all of the information. And I think Notes Direct, this is Eddie Speed's database, and they actually give you the collateral file there, so you can actually look at parts of the collateral file. But it's a good place to get your feet wet in the whole note space. What I find there is you don't get too many big home runs. When I say home runs, you're looking for, even their non-performings might be a little bit overpriced for me. But if you're looking for a good 8, 10, 12, 15%, you may be able to get it on these. SNSC Servicing, they have a brokerage part to their servicing department. And if you just go to their website, SNSC, you can email Dave Polio and he sends out what we call tapes. And I'm going to get into the tapes in a second, but you can get monthly, usually he sends out something monthly, and you can get access to those tapes. And if you go to Revival Brothers, they also send out several tapes. They haven't sent out anything recently, but they do send out tapes, and you can get access to a bunch of assets. And they could be anywhere from 50 to 100 on one tape. So any questions there? Cool. So I just talked about a tape. This is a sample, an example of a tape. So this is basic terminology. A tape is nothing more than an Excel spreadsheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet with assets that are for sale. You don't have to buy tapes. Tapes are just a way in which people present the assets. So if someone's selling you a tape, just run as far away as possible, because no tapes are for sale. You don't ever have to buy a tape. You also can't ask for specific tapes. You can't say, I want all performing notes, all of them in Odessa, Texas, and I want them to have an unpaid principal balance of, and you say that to someone and they're going to tell you good luck. I hope you find it. But you get what you get when you get a tape or when you receive a tape. And the basic information, whether you're on PaperStack or Watermark, they don't have tapes, but they have the same information. And what you need to know, even if someone, just a friend of yours, says, hey, I have a note to sell, and hands you a folder, the basic information you need to have is the address, the city, the state, the zip. You don't necessarily need the county. You can always Google the county. The UPB, which is the unpaid principal balance, the rate, which is the rate that is on the note. It is not the return that you're going to get. The principal and interest, this is the payment that you will receive month after month. And the original balance, because you need to know what was the original balance of the loan once it was originated. Then you have first payment date, which of course is what it states. It's the first day that the borrower made a payment. And you have the last paid date and next due date. So last paid date is the last time they made a payment. The next due date is the next time it's due. So for me, my mortgage is due the first of every month. For me, the last pay date would have been August 1st, 2023. The next due date will be September 1st, 2023. So by looking at these, what can you tell by last pay date and next due date? Considering today is August, what is today? August 17th?
They're performing notes.
They're non-performing notes. Correct. And this is what you have to look at. So, and this is the maturity date, of course, when it was going to mature. So you have these non-performing notes. You know that this is a tape of non-performing notes, because they don't always tell you, hey, this is performing, this is non-performing. And even though you may get a tape that will say this is performing or non-performing, you still don't trust it, because there have been a lot of people who have said this is a performing note. And once I receive the information from them, I put in an offer, I receive the collateral file, I'll see that the borrower hasn't paid for the past 6 months. But you told me it was performing. So don't trust it, even if they do tell you. But the tape generally is the only thing that you will receive before you put in an offer. And a lot of times these offers they want the offers in quickly, especially if you're working with a broker. So they'll say, here's a tape. They'll give it to you on Tuesday. They say, we want offers in on Thursday. And you're like, well, what do I do? So I teach how to scrub a tape. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go through the due diligence. but you have to do an initial due diligence. And this is what I call my initial due diligence. So you check out the property, you check out Google and Zillow. So I'm going to stop sharing and go to my. Okay. It's like I'm going to bring up my website and walk you through my Google walk. You all seeing this? Like a hidden house, a Google Street?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Okay. Okay. So this is what I do. This is actually a property I purchased in Moroa, Illinois. It's an asset I purchased. And that's the property. It actually looks a lot better now because the person who is living in there has fixed it up. But what I do is a Google walk. I just find the address, I take the address, and then I just go up and down the street. And I look for certain things. I'm looking for the area. Is it suburban? Is it rural? Is it city? What is it? It just looks like a nice neighborhood. I look to see for pride of ownership. Are people keeping their lawns nice, or are they overgrown? I look, are cars parked in the driveways, or are they parked on the front lawn? Are people being set out? Do they have their trash cans out nicely? What is the area like? And if I say it's a nice area, it really doesn't matter if it's a nice area or a not so nice area. I mean, if I saw people sitting on their porch smoking a joint and throwing deuces up at the Google car driving by, is that a place that I want to invest? I don't know. Depends on what the numbers look like. If the numbers still work for me, I will still invest there. Will I live there? No. But then I have to realize that other people, not everybody will live in the same properties that you have or that these assets. But you have to understand that there's a house for everyone. And you never know what these communities are, even if it is, you know, a neighborhood where it looks like you wouldn't walk down the street at night, right? But someone else will. And it could be someone who was raised up in the projects and now all of a sudden they got a good job and they just want to buy their first home. And this is their first step into home ownership. And you're able to provide that to them. So it may not be what you buy, but it may be for someone else. So you just look at the neighborhood. The next thing I do is that I will go to Zillow. And this is my back of napkin type of quote unquote comps. I look for properties that are in a range like this 42,000. This 42,000, I look at it and I say, hey, is that 42,000 a rehab or is it an ugly house? 42,000, let's say that it was the ugly house. So here's Walnut Street, because this is the street where the asset is. And then I look at this 192. Is this 192 a rehab? Is it following the comps of 4 bedrooms, 3 baths? That's really not a good comp because mine is 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. Right? So I just kind of base it on these, a 2-bedroom that just went for $53K or 90. And what I'm looking for is if I were to go in there and it's just an ugly house, how much can I get for it? That's just the base I'm looking for. And this is just using Zillow. And here, this 180, say it's a 3-bedroom, 3 bath. What is this 160? Here's a 3-bedroom, 2 bath. It could be a similar comp. If I went in there and I just rehab the entire place, how much can I get for it? And I try to take those numbers down because that's going to go into my budget worksheet that I'm going to show you in a few. Then the next thing I do is, and this is just, again, quick back of napkin so that I can get my initial offer in. So the next thing I do is I'll go to City Data, citydata.com. Are you all seeing the change in the screen?
Yes.
Okay. I go to citydata.com. because I don't always know what these cities are. So when I found this one in Moroa, Illinois, I had no idea where it was. So when I'm in city data, I'm looking for certain things. I'm looking for a population of at least 5,000. Here they had the population and it's 1,549. I'm also looking for a median income of at least 25,000 or 30,000 because that's right at poverty level or right above poverty level. So in this case, it was 50,000 is their median income. I'm also looking for banks and I'm looking for Walmarts and Walgreens because wherever big banks, I'm not looking just for any little bank like Scott State Bank. We don't know who Scott is. We don't know where he's been. We don't know what he has in his basement. We don't know what Scott's doing. I don't know who Scott is. I know Bank of America. I know Regions. I know Wells Fargo. This is not a big bank. And we look for Walmarts and Walgreens because if Walmart's there, there's money there. Big banks go to where money is. Walmart goes to where money is. And as you can see, there's no stores here. So why did I buy in Maroa, Illinois, if it didn't match the criteria? I bought here because if you scroll down just a little bit further, did I miss it? Right here, you see that Decatur, Illinois is the next nearest city with a population of 50,000. So there are probably people who drive, it's only 12.8 miles away, drive into Decatur for work and drive back into Maroa for living. And St. Louis and Chicago were way too far away. But if you also look at these other nearest cities that are 2.8 miles away, Clinton, Illinois has everything that we're looking for. So Clinton, Illinois has the population of 69. It has that median income household at 48. That's decent. It also has major banks. So they have First National Bank and Trust. They also have Regions Bank, which I always look for Regions if I don't see anything else. And if you scroll further down, there is a Walmart and a Walgreens and a bunch of other stores in that area. So that's why I purchased, because it was bumped right up against a city. It's kind of like my city. I live in an area called Gwen Oak, but a mile down the road is Randallstown, Maryland. And it's right next door. It doesn't take too much, but Randallstown may not have the population that my area has, but it's just right next door. So that's why I purchased in Maroa, Illinois. And then the last thing that I check is taxes. And why do I check taxes? Because if I don't check taxes, there have been times where I have checked taxes on an asset that I was about to buy, and it had already sold in a tax sale. I'm glad I checked. I'm glad I called. Not only do I check here, because I go to Netter Online. If you go to Netter Online and you just go to public records, a little slow. You go to public records online and you can select any city, county, state, it doesn't matter. In this case, it was Illinois. And then you just go on down to the county. In this case, it's in Macon County. It's Macon. In Macon County. And then if they don't have something that says tax, you always hit the treasurer and you can go to that data online. Not every county has the data online. Most of them do, a lot of them do, but if you don't, always call. I look online first for my initial due diligence. Then the second half of my due diligence, I make the phone call to the tax office, and I make it twice. But in this case, if you select your county again, it's Macon, and you can continue. Set the terms. I'm not a robot. And I put the, what is it, 227 Walnut in Maroa. And I checked this earlier today. I was like, oh, I hope they paid the taxes. And that's why you check behind your servicer. But as you can see, they paid the first half of, oh, wait a minute. Payments. They paid the first half, but they haven't paid the second half, which is due September. So you can see, they'll also tell you if the taxes are delinquent, but you just want to know, one, even you can still buy it if the taxes are due. You just want to incorporate that into your budget so you can still see if the numbers work for you. Secondly, you want to know if it was sold in a tax sale, because if you're in a tax lien state or if you're in a tax deed state, it makes a difference. Tax lien, Maryland, we're in a tax lien state. So when your property goes to tax sale, they get a lien certificate and you have a portion of time to redeem that lien. So it's not all gone. But if you're in like Virginia, Virginia is a tax deed state. So as soon as that property goes to tax sale, someone buys it, it's a done deal. And you could lose your money if you don't check to make sure that those taxes have been paid, and that those taxes, that property has not gone to a tax sale. And I ask those questions specifically when I call the tax offices. And I say, has it gone to a tax sale? Even if they tell me it's fine, they're paid up. I'll say, it never went to a tax sale? Because ultimately, even if they say there's no taxes owed, it could be that there's no taxes owed because someone bought it in the tax sale. And so all they're doing is looking at a screen saying, oh no, the taxes were paid. You're good. So then I have to ask, was it sold in a tax sale? And then they'll start looking and say, oh yeah, it was. So you just have to be mindful of little things like that. And then I run my budget sheet. After all of that, I go to, where's my budget? My budget sheet. Are you all seeing the budget sheet? You all see the Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is my mega spreadsheet. I call it a mega spreadsheet because people get intimidated when they see these types of spreadsheets. They either say, oh, a spreadsheet, or they say, oh, a spreadsheet. So this is what I generally do. I was looking to increase it. I just go through here and it's just all the gray spots. I fill it in, the number of baths, bed and bath, the square footage. Remember when we did the Zillow and we were looking for what would this property sell for if I were going in and renovate it? So we were looking for those comps on Zillow. So we came up with that number. Then we looked for the as is value, the AIV. And we said, what would it be if we just left it alone and it wasn't going to do anything and we didn't do anything to it? What would it sell for? Would it sell for $45,000? We put that in the as is value. Then you can go get the rent zestimate, or you can do rentometer and find the rents. We only put the rents in there because just in case we have to do cash for keys, that is what I do. I try to give 1 month's worth of rent for cash for keys. So I put that in there. Here you put that as a performing note or a non-performing note. That will trigger everything else down here. So if it's a performing note, which it was, it'll give you the total payments. It'll calculate the internal rate of return, the loan to value, and your projected profit. If it's non-performing, it won't give you this information, and you start filling in all the other stuff. So this is the unpaid balance. And then you put the current principal and interest, which is why you need to know this information based off of the tape. The number of payments left. If they don't tell you, you then have to do the math based off of when their last payment was, and the maturity date will tell you the number of payments that were left. The total term, the years that they paid, that's fine, and the rate and the number of months where they're behind. So you'll be able to see that in the tape, how far they are behind. You can put all of this other information, your attorney fees and costs, your cash for keys, which would be the 15. If they owed back taxes, you can put those in there. If they owed nuisance liens, which I also call for nuisance liens, but I get that through the tax office. How much it would cost for winterization, recording fees, all of this information can be filled in, and then it will auto-calculate. You don't have to put anything in these spaces here. It will auto-calculate and give you all of the exit strategies. So your exit strategies could just be cash flow model. That would be for performing notes. It's just cash flowing. You don't look at this model if it's a non-performing note. Your wholesale model, which technically isn't wholesale, is when you take the property back and then you just sell it, and you're just selling it as is. So that would be your wholesale model. Your retail flip, if you were to go in and actually renovate the entire place, what could you get for it? And then this one is, move the screen thing, your lipstick model. So I didn't go in and renovate the whole thing, but I did just put paint on the walls, and I may have updated the carpet a bit. What can I get for that? And then your reperform and sell. This is your option where you go in and you just ask the borrower to reperform, and they say, yes, we want to keep our house. We're going to reperform. And this gives you an estimate of what your projected ROI will be. This is a borrower payoff if they just happen to say, oh, stop bothering me with all those phone calls about I owe you money. Here, I'm just going to pay it off. This would be your borrower payoff. And then if you happen to turn back a note, so for example, I foreclosed on a couple of properties and I just put it out on Craigslist as a handyman special. And then I've turned a contract for deed, or I did seller financing as is. That would be what this box is. And this box is if you turn seller financing, meaning you carried back the note after you rehabbed the property. So this is what I'm looking at. And if all the numbers shine and say, great, then I'll move forward and I will put in an offer. But that is quick back of napkin. It really only takes maybe 15, 20 minutes to actually do that quick. It seemed like it took a while for me to do it, but it actually takes but maybe 15, 20 minutes to actually go through that whole process just to say, yes, I want that note and I'm going to put in an offer for it. Then after you put in that offer for it, you move forward with the second part of your due diligence, which is very minor because I don't do too much in that second bit. I will call a realtor. I won't order a BPO. I prefer to talk to a realtor because realtors are boots on the ground. They know the area. They can let you know, oh yeah, Amazon is coming. They're coming down the area. They're bringing jobs. They can let you know those things that a BPO can't let you know. But after my offer is accepted, they give you a period of time to do even further due diligence as well as review the collateral file. So putting in your offer so quickly is not like, oh, it's all said and done. I might lose money because I'm not sure if my back of napkin due diligence. It's fine. You can just put your offer in because they're asking for it so quickly, and they may take highest and best, or they may take whoever puts the first offer in on this asset. Your offer may be accepted. So you just want to get it in as quickly as possible. Then your other due diligence takes place where you pull your title, you get your images, and you make sure that everything lines up. If something doesn't line up and seems fishy, you tell them I don't want it anymore. But you don't want everything to line up and then you say I don't want it anymore, because then you kind of get blacklisted because everything was great and then you just didn't pull the trigger. Any questions?
Go back to the tape.
The tape? Okay.
Yeah, am I misseeing it or did you misspeak? It looked like it was performing to me. and
Oh,
you said
actually,
Non-performing. No, the tape.
oh, the tape, sorry.
Yeah.
Where's the tape? Oh, the tape. Sorry, the tape is in the screen. All right, hold on one second. Let me get back to my sharing. Where'd it go? Okay. And now, sorry about that. Um, one, there.
There we go.
Okay. So you said it looked like it was performing?
Right, because last paid and then next paid, that's the next month. Oh,
Right. And so that was the next due date. But looking at it from, what is today? August 2023, the next due date was 1/1/2020. And this tape, if you received it this month, it would be non-performing. So yes, it does look like it is because yeah, that's the next due date. They should pay it, but they stopped paying as of December 1st, 2019.
I see.
Does
Okay.
it make sense? Okay. Cool. So this was one that was done in DeSoto, Missouri. One of my students did this one, which was kind of crazy. So it was a contract for deed. It was non-performing. The people just walked away from the property and just stopped paying. It was vacant when she bought it. So she bought it for only $8,196. It was 46% of the unpaid principal balance. The UPB was 17,817, but that really doesn't mean anything when you have a non-performing note that's now the people have vacated. So she spent $5,788 in expenses. That was the lawyer, it was back taxes, it was cleaning out the yard, which doesn't look like it needs much. But the neighbor kept complaining that the lawn was overgrown, so she had to pay for all of that stuff. So she was in it for $13,984. She calculated the as-is value at 35 and the ARV at 70,000. This she got so cheap because this sits on the wrong side of the railroad tracks in a flood zone, and nobody wanted it. The broker said people have passed by this so many times. She did such good due diligence on this that she actually found the realtor who sold the house to the people who vacated it. And it had been maybe 5 or 6 years. She found the realtor, she got information, she told her everything about the house. And she also told her that it has never ever flooded, which nowadays it really doesn't mean much when someone tells you it doesn't flood, because they've had 100-year floods in the last 2 years. Everybody's had this 100-year flood. But she was comfortable in saying it has never ever flooded there. So you don't have anything to worry about. And to this date, it has not flooded. But she put it on, she went and she had to go through the whole process of getting the contract back what do you call it, revoking the contract. And anyway, she got the property back. She just put it out on Craigslist. She didn't do a realtor. And she was just like, hey, it needs some work. Anybody want it? A guy contacted her and said, I have been looking at this house for a long time. He said, my son, he's disabled. I've been looking at a house to put him in, and this is right down the street from me, and it's in walking distance to shops. He said it's the perfect place for him. And she wanted to go ahead and sell it to him. So she sold it to him because he was buying it with an LLC. She was able to do a balloon payment. So she just asked for a little $1,500. She sold it for $40,000. Oh, sorry. She sold it for $40,000. Now, mind you, she's all in it for 13, but she sold it for 40. Just a little small down payment of $1,500. She gave him a nice interest rate at 7.5. She receives 406.27 for the first 5 years. She's in year 4, I believe, right now. And then she asked for a balloon payment. She could ask for a balloon payment, and that does not go against Dodd-Frank, because he was buying it with his LLC and she was selling it with an LLC. So it was business to business as opposed to business to consumer, in which case you could not have the balloon payment. So the balloon payment will be $26,892. Her projected profit is $38,377, which is a return of investment of $274, which I said was just plain stupid. That's just craziness. But it worked out good, and that was her first note. And this I'm just showing to you all, not just because it's in Texas, because I did the map and I saw this was about 300 miles from you all, but it took me a while to get this one back. I'm actually currently in this one, and it's listed online on the MLS right now because I'm trying to sell it. But purchased this in June of 2021 as a lease option. I purchased it non-performing. So the person had not paid for a whole year prior to me purchasing this. It sits on 2 acres, 2.08 acres of land. So purchased it for $53,000. I did a JV, a joint venture with a partner. So I paid out $26,500. The unpaid balance was $78,475. We were told that the as-is value, and we were told it was a lot more. And we said, okay, because they said the land itself was like $50,000 an acre. So I just said, just to be conservative, I'm just going to say the as-is value is around $100,000. And the after rehab, if we were to go in there and rehab the whole thing, we could probably get $200,000. That's the way I budgeted my numbers. So in 2021, we went out and we said, we're going to evict this guy because he hasn't paid in a year. Of course, we did try to reach out and see if anything was wrong. He acted like he couldn't speak English and that he just kept hanging up the phone. And we knew that this was just, he wasn't going to pay. So we said, okay, fine. So we went through the eviction process. He lawyered up. Yeah, I was like, for real, dude? He lawyered up and got a lawyer, and they claimed that because I am a foreign entity cannot own property in Texas. And the Justice Court agreed with him, and they found in favor of that tenant. That was December of 2022. So at this point, I'm like, there is no way on earth a Justice Court could agree with this borrower being, at this point, he's 2 years delinquent in paying his rent. So then my lawyer said, we're going to go to the county court. He said that one counts. The Justice Court really was just a formality. And I'm thinking, that's money formality, dude. Why don't we just go straight to the county court? I don't know. This is why I use lawyers. So we went to the county court. The county court said, get out. So May of 2023, he was evicted. The sheriff was there on site. I worked with a property service company that was able to get someone out there to haul out the stuff. And we loaded up. He was out. He had already left the property, but we cleaned out the place. It took 4 dumpsters to get it out, and they straightened up a few things, but it still needs a little bit of work. But we just said we're going to sell it as is. So the actual eviction, it did occur in July of 2023. We've spent $12,250 on lawyers, taxes, servicing, and the clean out. So our total acquisition plus the expenses so far, I say, because I haven't gotten the final invoice from the lawyer, has been $65,250, which isn't bad when you have it on the market for $225,000. And we did have to reduce it. You see, I just reduced it this week because we had it out for $260 because we had high hopes. But the realtor was like, no, you should probably reduce that. So right now it's on the market for $225,000. So even if it sells for $225,000, the profit itself, that's acquisition expenses minus acquisition and expenses, we still have $138.50 with a $69,075 for each of us. So it's still not horrible. Even if it goes below that at 200, it's still a good, solid return. And again, it's just about waiting it out. I wanted to present this one to you because a lot of times you get these high and glamorous, I did this and within 6 months, I got a 1000% return. But this took 2 years and it was frustrating, mainly because the courts were backed up and then we had to wait and then he lawyered up and it was a lot of stuff going on. So it's still going to be profitable, but just wanted to sell so I can move on. So if you happen to be interested in note investing, you want to learn more how to become the bank, you need to know how to operate in that manner. I do offer 2 types of courses. I have an online self-paced course and I have an online live course. The only difference between the two is that you have me as a teacher for the live course, and on the self-paced course, it's still me, but you can take your time. There's no time restriction and you can just go through it step by step and go through each module. And it teaches you how to scrub a tape. It teaches you everything. So that starts September 7th. It's 4 sessions. Each session is 2 hours. You will learn to and understand how to source, evaluate, and acquire your first note. Most people that go through this, they're ready to purchase their first note, and you have everything that you need in order to do it. So these are the things that we cover, from the notes, lien positions, performing versus non-performing, examining the collateral file. We go through it, truth in lending, Dodd-Frank, performing due diligence, evaluating the notes. We go through exit strategies, working out notes, budget sheets, scripts. How do you talk to the realtor? How do you talk to the tax offices? We talk about liens and making offers, building your team. And I have homework. So I provide homework so that people can get their hands dirty and actually do the actual work. There's something to be said about actually doing the work instead of just listening to somebody tell you how to do the work. And so I put the homework in there so that people get comfortable with scrubbing the tape and making a decision on whether or not this is a good note that they should move forward with. So these are the dates: September 7th, 12th, 19th, and 21st. I put them in Central Time, 6:30 to 8:30 each day, and each session is recorded. So if you happen to miss a session, that is absolutely fine. You can get the recording, and I ask people to go ahead and download those recordings anyway. So I originally, on my website, I sold the course for $12.50, but for you all, the online self-paced course will be $748. And if you want to take the live course, it's originally $1,500 on my website, but for you, it's just $997. That's going to be good through Saturday at noon. And you can go to peerharbor.com/education and training if you are interested. And that is all I have. Any questions? I actually have some reviews here. If anybody, you can go on my website or you can go to whatever, to the Google my company, peerharbor.com, and you can see also the other reviews of people who have completed the course. Any questions?
I have a question on the tax lien, the property tax. You said to go to, is it Nether online? I couldn't.
Yes.
I'm sorry. How do you spell that?
Yes, NETR online.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And the other question to that is, you said if your state is a tax lien state or a tax deed state, is that what you were telling me? Ours is a deed. It was deed of trust, but what is ours on what she's talking about? Tax lien or tax?
You have to ask her on that.
Okay, tax lien or tax deed state for Texas?
For Texas, I think Texas is a hybrid, to be honest with you. I have to look it up again. Hold on one second. I'm going to stop sharing. But I believe you might be a hybrid state. Let me find that. I actually have a.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on that.
What's that?
Tax lien or tax deed?
Can they redeem it?
Can they? Yeah, if you buy a tax property, they've got like 6 months before you can actually do anything with it.
Okay.
They've got 6 months of redemption period, as long as
But
the
it
homestead.
would be a tax lien, is that what you're saying?
Hold on a second. I have it here.
So if it's got redemption, what is it?
If it has redemption, it's lien.
Okay.
Now, some of them are, and I think that's what I'm thinking. Texas is one of them,
Texas
where they are a deed, but they have a deed with, there's a period where you can redeem. Well, I have it right here in my.
Our realtor just told us that they've got 6 months to redeem it.
Okay.
Good to have realtors.
It is. Hold on, where is it? What? I have this in here. Okay, so it is 6 months to redeem. Does that make it and I think it might, is it county by county?
Right,
Do you-
county by county,
What is that?
the redemption, or statewide.
As far as I know, here in Midland,
It's statewide.
I'm not sure, it's probably statewide though, if I had to guess.
Awesome. Any other questions?
With all foreclosure sales, tax deed sales.
Would you recommend if we could buy like a local one? I
What do you mean?
Like locally, just, or how hard is it to find a local deal? I know you do, most of yours are far away from where you live.
Well, let me tell you about Texas. There's a lot going on in Texas, and everybody loves buying in Texas when it comes to notes. And that's anywhere in Texas. They just see Texas and those get run up so high. So yes, you can buy locally. I actually have one in my backyard that I just recently got. And believe it or not, I call it the Nigerian Prince note, because the guy who owns it claims he's a Nigerian prince. I said, okay. I said, I've never met a broke prince, because it's a non-performing note, and he has not paid a dime, and he just wants to fuss and fuss and fuss about how he doesn't owe us any money. So, like, okay, Nigerian prince. So we're in foreclosure with it, but it is in my backyard. So yeah, I advise people to invest all around. There are areas I do not invest. I don't invest in Maine, New Hampshire, New York, New Jersey, because they're long foreclosure times, and they are borrower friendly. So they're ones that I just don't get into that much. But ones down south, anything down south is pretty much easy to get into. Parts of the Midwest, they're pretty much easy to get in and out of. So when people are telling me, hey, I'm looking for a note where I can be in and out of it within, 6 to 9 months, then we're definitely looking in the South. We're not looking in California. Well, I don't look in California anyway, because those are just way overpriced. But New York, you could be in it for a long, long time, 3 to 4 years. Any other questions? Did I do that good of a job?
We
Thank
appreciate
you all.
it. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, I'll pass your number on to them.
Awesome. That's wonderful. I appreciate it. Thank you all so much. This was great.
You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You all have a good one.